Welcome to episode 29 of In Touch with iOS, a podcast for sharing tips, apps, and gear for iPhone and iPad, along with related technologies that gets us using iOS in fun, productive, and meaningful ways. I am your host, Dave Ginsburg, and joining me as always is Melissa Davis. How are you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing well. Excited. We watched WWDC just a few days ago, and I'm excited for all the new stuff that's coming down the pike.
And it was just software, so we can't talk about anything hardware. So, which actually is fine by me.
I was fine by that. I was fine with that. I know, I tweeted, I said, I don't understand why people are excited about hardware announcements because traditionally, WWDC has always been about software and developers and that sort of thing. So, yes, they have released hardware. But for the most part, WWDC is a developers conference. It's predominantly about software. So that's the only expectation that I ever bring to the table. I get excited about interface changes and updates and things that will be made easier. I did get excited at the top of the show when they started talking about photos and search. And what we did not get was I was really hoping I was sitting there like, on bated breath. I was like on the edge of my seat, like a nerd, like, oh, come on, you got to say it. They did not give us the ability to edit our EXIF data. I really wanted to be able to, like in Photos on the Mac, I wanted to be able to add keywords and I wanted to be able to, add captions and things like that. And so that I could search for things. Yeah. And, I've been asking for that for a while, but they didn't deliver. But we're that much closer to it, right? Yeah,
it's getting a lot closer. And what was great about it is they just spanned across all four of their platforms. We'll of course focus on iOS 12, Watch OS 5, TV OS 12, and then we won't focus on, but they did announce Mac OS 10.14 Mojave.
Right here in my backyard, practically.
Yeah, and just a brief discussion about Macs. Anything before 2012, you're out of luck. Yeah,
you've been cut, unfortunately.
All right, so we got some news to talk about. We're going to talk about some the iOS 11.4 just got updated, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll dig into just a deep review of iOS 12, not too deep, but deep enough to tickle your fancy, and talk about some of the things what we'll expect coming up here when it comes out. So first off, let's talk about this one story I caught. Apple this was actually put out on Tuesday as we record this is Thursday. Free trials for all paid apps is now possible thanks to an updated app store guidelines. So that's super exciting because you talked about it with Castro and you're worried about people being able to buy the app and then regret it later if they didn't like it. So this is great because I think this was always a pet peeve of a lot of people that the App Store doesn't give you the option to be able to buy this app and try it out first. And
developers
with its full
have always been sore about it, understandably. And for me, like as a field technician, as someone who consults for a living and goes out and is trying to teach people how to use apps, that's always been a barrier to entry. It was like, oh, do I really want to tell this person they've got to spend $3.99 on something that they might not like? So I am super, super stoked for this because it means that I can do that now. When there's an app that I really like, that I'd like to see them give a try and see if it suits their needs, now they can try it. I don't have to feel guilty about it anymore.
Yeah, as the article says, it'll basically allow you to do like a $0 in-app purchase and then be able to unlock the app free for a trial period of time, and then it'll set that period, and then it's easy. I mean, I that's what I didn't understand. I mean, they do this on Mac and they do this on Windows. Why can't they do this on iOS? I mean, it's simple as sending a license key to an app that's online at all times because, let's face it, of course, our devices are always online, so why couldn't they do this? So this is awesome news. We got a link, of course, to this article into show notes if anybody else is interested about it. So what I wanted to do is I threw three articles relating to two of the three OSs we were going to talk about today. Watch OS 5 we'll talk just a brief amount about, and then TV OS 12, and then we'll go a little more in detail with iOS, since that's what we're here for, iOS, right? One of the big things I caught my eye with Apple Watch, and I was pretty stoked when they first announced this. When I was just on for Mac Eyes Only with Mike Potter and Gary Malpez, Gaz. They announced some great new fitness items on here, as well as walkie-talkie, which I thought was that was the
It's
one that really
exciting.
was probably the biggest thing that excited me.
I can't wait to try that.
Yeah, it's so it's got they added in WatchOS 5 an automatic workout detection, and that's kind of cool because I don't work out enough. I should work out more. Maybe it'll start.
I'm a sloth. I don't work out at all.
I'm the same. So, but.
You do a lot more workouts than I do, so you're actually going in there and telling it that you're doing a workout, like when you're taking walks and stuff. I mean, I know plenty of people do that. That's totally legit.
I'm not, because it's doing it automatically. No? You get it, since you and I share our data. No,
every once in a while I get a workout notification from you. No,
walking. I'm just doing a lot of walking because I walk around my office all day long. So But
I know people who are really good about doing that. They're like, oh, this counts as a workout, and so they'll make it a workout. And I've tried doing that too. Whenever I, but you can tell the times that I go to my local mug meeting, because that's when I do it. That's when I think about it, because that's like the president and I we have this little understanding that that's what I do, and he gets the notification on his watch, so he knows that I'm there.
Yeah.
So I'll have to start surprising him with more workouts. But do you think it'll work for me? Because I've been thinking about this. I keep thinking about, how can I do more workouts for things like that, like things that I don't normally think would count as a workout, but it really does. And one time I decided to check my heart rate when I was playing with the puppy, and it turns out I think that should be a workout. So can I make like a puppy workout? Do you think do you think if it detects my heart rate has gone up enough that it'll make a workout for me?
It could.
It totally should. It totally should.
So yeah, some pretty cool features they've added. I mean, and they're obviously realizing how important the Apple Watch is for people who are active, and heart rate monitors, and hopefully they're coming up with diabetes stuff. I know that's being worked on.
Yeah, I was surprised that wasn't noticed. Now they did. It was really sweet and endearing. I'll admit it. I tear up. I always do. I'm a sap. I always tear up when I watch the keynotes, because they always put something really meaningful in there, and I thought that was great. They interviewed the app developers' families. Yeah. And I don't know, if the app developer families, like if the app developers themselves were told and this was a big surprise for them or not. I'm not really sure. It would be really cool. I'd like to think that was the case. But anyway, they listed some of the apps and the type of development that was being done. And it seemed like they were interviewing somebody that had something to do with diabetes or glucose monitoring or something. So that's why I was kind of surprised. And maybe that was just a little Easter egg, like that they were, maybe that's coming sooner.
Yeah, no, I know they've been talking about it. It's just, I don't know if it's a physical hardware add-on or whether the Apple Watch is going to get updated, and later this year. But the walkie-talkie app was pretty cool, being able to send push-to-talk messages, just like the old school Nextel phone. That was the first thing I thought of before I even read this article when I watched it live. Yeah, remember those days when the old Nextel?
Don't you use that feature in the Messages app? Do you ever use that with the microphone? Because that acts like a walkie-talkie. Yeah. Because my dad and I use that, and we use that from several thousand miles away, and it works pretty well. So I'm thinking that it'll work like this on the Apple Watch itself, because he gets frustrated with trying to dictate into Siri, and I'm like, Dad, why don't you just talk to it? He's like, oh, I forgot how to do that, and so I had to walk him through how to do that, and so then we were walkie-talkie texting each other. So, I think it'll work like that.
This will be direct, which I think push to talk, which, like I said, just like Nextel phones.
That was a really cool feature.
Yeah. So, the other thing they did, and I was going to get a little more in depth, is the podcast app is now going to be added to the Apple Watch. So that's kind of exciting for us podcasters out there, because we get a lot of listeners through that app, and it's not necessarily just on the iPhone. So now you'll be able to have this on the Apple Watch, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm.
And there's other third-party apps that do it, but it'll be nice to be built in so that you won't have to go searching for that.
Right, and then Siri Watch Face, they updated it with better shortcuts, and other actions that will support third-party apps, which was huge. And finally, one of the neat features for the students. For students with student ID cards, allowing students to access buildings with the watch, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, my husband just went back for his master's. I'm excited to check that out. But I have a feeling, I don't know, I have to go look at the page that they had listed and see which universities, because it's not all universities yet, is it? It's a select handful.
It started with Duke, University of Alabama, Oklahoma, and Johns Hopkins, Temple. So I'm sure more will jump on. Then lastly, they did add a new rainbow-colored Pride watch band and a watch face, which is actually available today. So you could add that to your watch if you wanted to. So
nice.
Again, like all the rest of these OSs, they're not going to get released until the fall. So and don't install it until it's ready.
Yes, be patient.
So
let Dave do it first.
Well, I got spare phones now. So phones. Since I got an iPhone 6 now
it's out for beta, isn't it? You have it on your 5 SE?
I have it on the SE, and I also have an iPhone 6 now. Since we did some upgrades in the family, so we were able to trade the 6 in. So like, you know what? Let me use it for some testing for a while, and then maybe I'll sell it later. Who knows? But it is installed, and I haven't had a lot of time to play with it. But we'll talk about that in a bit as far as what iOS does. So. tvOS, there really wasn't much to talk about other than they added Dolby Atmos support, which is pretty huge in those of you who are audiophiles and those of you who want some really good sound. And this is in the 4K Apple TV. And it will decode, not only be the only stream box right now that supports both 4K and Atmos, it'll be probably one of the largest collection of Atmos supported movies anywhere with this update. So it is also reiterated that Apple TV is going to be quite a game changer in the television market, but right now you don't see a lot out there. When I heard the announcement that cable company Spectrum, which is out on the West Coast, they were committed to having the Apple TV being their replacement for a cable box, which is pretty awesome. But I don't see cable companies like Comcast doing that because they have their own platform with the X1. So that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. And of course, Apple's going to upgrade the single sign-on, which is great. So they're basically calling it with a zero sign-on. Again, I don't
know how great that's going to be, though. Yeah. I have to give that some pause because I use some different logins, and sounds great for people who just have their own cable subscription. But if you're big borrowing and stealing, not stealing, you're borrowing, you're sharing legally because it is still legally done. Sure. I think that might cause some problems. So
be interesting to see. But you also have DirecTV Now, which is an app you can install now and pay for service for that, as well as YouTube TV, which is starting to become a little more popular. They're adding more channels all the time. So it'd be interesting to see where this goes. I mean, this is no longer a hobby. If you remember many years ago, Steve Jobs calling the Apple TV, this is just a hobby.
Right.
Well, it's turned out to be a little bigger than that. So it's pretty exciting as far as that goes. So, but anyway, before we dive deep into the preview of iOS 12 and some of the things that were talked about during WWDC, let's talk a little bit about iOS 11.4. It was released a couple weeks ago. And one of the biggest updates they added was iMessage in iCloud. Now, again, I don't have a problem using iCloud. I know you have some of your clients as well as others have concerns about it. But it's as simple as you turn it on. When 11.4 is installed, it is off by default, so that they're not forcing you to do it. But the nice thing about it is, and that's probably the biggest culprit, I'm sure, one of the things that you encounter when you're supporting your users, that messages take up so much space on the phone.
It's one more thing that just takes up room.
Right. So now, which is nice, they'll offload them up to the cloud. So then it's stored on the cloud, and when you have to retrieve them later, it'll bring them down so you can view the videos or the pictures or whatever is in your messages. So that's was the biggest thing of what people kept talking about and why they wanted to have iMessage in the cloud. But if you are a little leery about the cloud, obviously you could do a backup using something like iMazing. We've talked about iMazing many times, as well as other types of backups. But obviously your call as far as how you want to do it. I don't know what your feeling is on that.
I do plan on, like, I haven't flipped the switch on it yet, just because I want to do that. I want to expunge things. I want to get things all backed up, because messages are really, really important to me. And I do trust iCloud, but I also trust backups. So anytime you're going to take a gamble on something like that, I think you got to make a backup in multiple places of it. Yeah. So I do that before I do like a nuke and pave. Every time I do a major update, I go in and I export my messages, just my messages. I mean, I do an entire backup with iMazing, but I like to have that. I do it like maybe once a year or quarterly or something, where I'll take all of my messages and I make a PDF of them, and then it's searchable because it's still text. Because I document a lot of things, and there's a lot of things that I have to go back on and be able to recall. So I don't want to lose those messages. They're really, really important to me. Sure. So make a backup, and then once I'm done with that, then I'll flip the switch, and then I can start purging things and making room and not having to worry about it being lost into the ether.
Yep. No, I agree with that. But again, I'm one that I am not bashful with cloud. We talked about before with credit cards and using Apple Pay and other stuff like that. And actually passwords, storing the passwords in the Apple keychain. I'm comfortable with that. I haven't had any concerns as far as that goes.
Keychain has always been one of those things that's bothered me. I mean, I've been using Macs for close to 30 years now. I just looked recently, and so keychain is just one of those things that was always kind of half baked, and it just as a technician, from a technician's perspective, keychain has always been it's just been a crutch. It's just been such a problem. It's just always been causing issues with users, with clients, with people like, oh, I got stuck on the keychain, and then you try to help them, and it's just, you kind of circle the drain on it, and it's just frustrating. Right. So I do trust putting stuff in the keychain, but I don't rely on it. So there's a difference. I trust it and I'll use it, but I don't rely on it. I rely on other things, and if keychain happens to save the day someday, fine, but I'm not going to rely on it. Yeah. So that's my stance on it.
Yeah, and I understand. Definitely, it's something you have to make an informed decision on as far as using.
It's going to start helping people with password hygiene, which is nice, but we talked about this on other episodes in the past. Yeah. I don't like the idea that it really breeds complacency. I feel like people are just going to start using their iPhones to save their passwords there in the keychain, or it's not really in the browser, but you know what I mean? Like it's saved there. And then what ends up happening is they can also save the wrong password too, and then end up getting frustrated because they've maybe navigated to a different page. It's just kind of a hot mess when it comes to that stuff. And I really believe firmly in using a dedicated password manager that is designed for those challenges, that really is designed with that user experience in mind. I don't think that saving passwords automatically and using the keychain was ever really meant for that kind of a user experience. Agreed. I think it was meant as like a catch-all, but I don't think that solves the problem. I think it creates more problems than it can solve sometimes.
It does. I mean, I deal with it in the corporate world too. Think about enforced password changes every 90 days. And then my password isn't synced. It's not working with file. So lots of challenges with the keychain, but that's a whole other discussion. So anyway, let's dive right in and this review what was revealed during the conference, during the keynote, I should say. iOS 12 looks like it's going to have a lot more power, a lot more features. I mean, the things that are going to make things a lot more efficient. The first thing that kind of stood out was, and that's the first thing that Apple lists on their site. We'll have this link in the show notes of the iOS 12 preview on Apple's website, is the speed. They're saying that it'll be up to 70% faster to swipe to the camera, 50% faster to bring up the keyboard display, and about 2 times faster app under heavy workload. So they've really have come a long way with efficiency with iOS 12. And I think that was one of the biggest discussions about iOS in general, because Apple knows that it was a very disappointing round of updates when iOS 11 came out. they really suffered. I mean, they really suffered with performance. They suffered with speed, with bugs. It's just not working efficiently. So instead of coming up all these great new features like they did every year in past iOS versions, the team really focused on getting it right, getting it so it works and doesn't have a lot of issues, and refine it. And then next year, the iOS 13, we assume that's what they'll call it. Then they can add some more features. And of course, by September, you're probably going to anticipate there'll be a new iPhone coming out, maybe even iPads. That's very possible. But I'm very, very pleased to see that they did some improvements as far as performance goes and relates to that. So, other exciting feature I at least thought was exciting, and I got excited when I first saw it for macOS only, was FaceTime. FaceTime, now you are able to talk to, I mean, that's pretty 32 people at once. That's pretty insane. But it's got tiles, which is cool. So if you have like a session with like 4 or 5 people, it's possible to have, you'll have a great experience using FaceTime instead of the way it used to be with just one-on-one conversations. This could be a game changer too. I'm not sure. They didn't mention anything about FaceTime audio, but since we're an audio podcast, this could be a game changer as far as video podcasts go, or even recording us is using FaceTime as opposed to this dreaded Skype that we deal with all the time. And so it does have some great things it's going to be in. It's group FaceTime, and you can create a thread and do it in messages. So they've really come a long way, which is great when it comes to that. So I'm pretty excited about that. I assume you are too.
Oh, yeah. And I can't wait to see what the implications are for podcasting. I mean, how great would it be if we didn't have to rely on Skype all the time?
Yeah, exactly. So now this other feature that I came out with, of course, this is only on the iPhone 10. We know Animojis are there, and I will talk about the added Animojis that they've had in just a second. But they now have Memoji. I was like, when I saw it, I'm like, what the heck is Memoji?
And tongue detection.
Tongue detection. Yeah, that's even better with the iPhone 10. So I mean, like this is anything new. I mean, then they have this in Snapchat now, where or even Bitmoji, which is it's the add-on for messages, which I use currently now. I have one now where every time I send one of those, I have customized with Chicago Cubs baseball hat, and thus I'm wearing the Cubs uniform with my face, my created face. So yeah, you can easily create an Animoji of just yourself, and they got different Memoji. It's called Memoji, and you can customize it. You can do frames, facial hair. So this isn't anything new, but of course it's exciting for us iPhone users, but of course you have to have the iPhone 10 to do it. So
well, I think the first couple of things that you mentioned out of the gate are all things that address competitors, right? I mean, performance was one thing. They wanted to address themselves even as a competitor. Right. I think that the performance is to address all the naysayers and all the people that have written so many articles. We you and I roll our eyes at it, but it's always saying that Apple basically designs things with obsolescence built in mind, right. And that they want to force you to buy a new phone every 2 years, and that's just really not true. Because I have iPhones that go back to the 4S and they're still in use. I mean, we don't use them as phones, but we could is the whole point. I don't have to worry about not having a backup phone. And that has actually happened to us. We've, I've told stories in the past of how, my husband had a phone that was stolen. And because we had an older iPhone, we could still activate the SIM card and use it as a backup for the time being. So these phones last for a long time. They may be slow and they may be sluggish. And yes, you want to have the latest security updates, but the point of it is that they have their lasting value. They really, really last for a long time. I can't say the same thing for anybody that I know that has any of the other competitor devices. I mean, maybe there's geeks out there that keep their old Samsung phones or whatever, but I don't know too many people that are, real world users that have had phones that have lasted as long as my iPhones have. I just don't. I think they're made of substandard parts, and I think that the software, that was one of the first things that they said out of the gate, was that in competitor phones, they don't get the updates as quickly as Apple phones do. And that's one of the things I really, really commend them for, is being able to get those updates so easily. Because I've tried tinkering with other things. You work with it in the industry, and you know darn well that you can't get the updates as fast as you'd like to get them on there. And I mean, what does that say for deployment too?
Right.
So they address that as far as competition is concerned. And then of course they know that competitors have these quirky, cute little gimmicky kind of things. And so I think that this was, there might be, older people or people that roll their eyes and want to stick their tongue out at these animojis and memojis and all this kind of the whole emoji movement. But you got to admit, I mean, it is popular amongst the younger crowd. And I will tell you that even the demographic that I work with, they really get a kick out of it. When you teach them how to use stickers and you teach them how to use this stuff, you want to see an 80-year-old turn into a 12-year-old instantly. Go ahead and show them how this stuff works. And, you're hard pressed to find somebody that it doesn't put a smile on their face. So I think it really brings joy to a lot of people. So I wouldn't just dismiss it. I think it's a lot of fun. It's gimmicky, but it addresses the competition in a fun way. And I think it's good. I think it's here to stay. And I think that they should just keep developing it. Yeah. I was never personally the Bitmoji type of person. Like I don't have a Bitmoji account. Sure. But, like on the Wii, like when my kids play on the Wii, there's the Miiverse and they make a Mii. And I had to admit, I've enjoyed making Miis and like customizing them and stuff. And I can see the merit of it. And I see how kids have fun with it. And it's a good, clean, fun way to pass the time. So who are we to say? So I think it's a great new feature. And I hope they keep on doing that.
And then with animojis, as we mentioned, you can stick your tongue out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, except for maybe the skeleton. I don't know. Does a skeleton have a tongue?
Oh, it might.
You'll have to go test it out and show us later.
I'm not putting it on my iPhone 10 right now. I can tell you that. But they added four new animojis: a koala, a tiger, a ghost, or a T-Rex. Oh my! Mm-hmm. And again, you also can inject some more fun into messages or a thread during a FaceTime call. Again, all on the iPhone 10 if you want to use animojis. But it says, you can go ahead and even wink or stick your tongue out because animojis be more expressive than ever, which is exciting.
I wonder if that's something you could demo at the counters, because every time we go to like one of the big box stores, the kids are always like, Mommy, can we go play with the iPhone 10s? Can we please go play with the iPhone 10s? And
I'm sure.
Yeah, so I'll have to let them do that the next time.
Yeah. So camera effects they liven up conversation. Now there's a new way to add personality to your messages in FaceTime right from the in-app camera. You quickly can create and share a photo or video with Animoji or Memoji, cool filters, effects, all kinds of stuff. So the other big thing was augmented reality, ARKit 2, making it even more possible. And they were doing some really cool demos during the keynote.
You mean the Legos?
Yeah, the Lego was really awesome. I couldn't.
Yeah, all the parents and their aunts were like, "Oh my God, no more stepping on Legos."
Yeah, that was really cool. And the other thing that was really cool, I thought, was the iOS app. It's an AR app called Measure. It allows you to help you actually measure in real world. And they showed it. I was like, he had a suitcase that he was measuring on a table, and it actually measured the length, width, and it seemed very accurate. So I thought it was very cool that.
Now, are we going to get that in iPhones below the iPhone 10, or is that just an iPhone 10 thing?
I think so. I mean, it doesn't say.
I can't wait if we do, because I use that all the time, but I'm always using a camera app that you can draw on. And I like to snap a picture. Like I just did it the other day. I had to get brand new bathroom mugs and I had to get out the physical tape measure like a cave woman and drag it into my bathroom and like actually measure the stuff, snap a picture and then draw on the picture, the measurements so that I could go and order new rugs. And that would have come in really, really handy.
Yeah. So no, AR is here to stay. It's going to be more and more exciting as time goes on. I mean, I think Apple is really doing hardcore developing an AR, so you'll see more and more things. Now, this one I know your boys are not going to be too happy about is screen time. Being aware of how you and your kids use your devices, and this actually is very cool. I mean, I mean, I would just like to know what I'm doing, and then it'll actually show me. Okay, I've spent this much time using Instagram, or I spent all this time on Facebook, or I was watching all these YouTube videos on YouTube. And it shows today, and it gives how much time you spent on it. It gives bar graphs. And what you visit as far as websites go. So I think this is smart. I mean, Apple was addressing. We've talked about this before when we had previous episodes. When it relates to how much time.
Yeah, I want to say what was that episode 20? I think it was where it was. We talked about whether or not we feel like Apple should be your nanny, and this addresses that article. Well,
no, they're not. But you have a tool to do it.
Right. Apple can allow Apple to allow your iPhone to be used as like a nanny cam of some sort, that you can look at your kid's stuff and you can look at your own stuff. I think what it is it's about behavior modification, and what Apple's addressing by addressing articles like the ones that were written, basically Apple has to do a better job at allowing people to basically modify their own behaviors and see that data. I mean, they do it with health, right? They give you a wearable device that you can use to monitor your heart rate and all of your health conditions, and you can look at all of those graphs and all of those data. Yeah. So what about mental health? What about behavioral health, behavioral data? So this will give you the tools to do exactly that. And I think it's a good thing. I think that you have to strike a balance when it comes to using it as a parenting tool, because there are kids that need to learn how to self-regulate. And if you tighten too many of the screws, I think that you end up shooting yourself in the foot in that regard, because if you take away all of their abilities to self-regulate, they're not going to learn how to regulate it themselves, you see. So, but it's good that it has those tools, and I'm looking forward to testing it and tweaking it. Like my kids are really into YouTube and they want to be YouTubers, and that's great and everything, but they spend a little bit too much time on it. And I was even looking at the router lever thinking, I know, exactly. It's like, they are looking at innocent stuff right now, but that could change in an instant. All they have to do, I mean, my youngest, we'll talk about this another time, but my youngest got an iPhone, or we gave him, an older iPhone to take to school, and school's now out. So we had a little trial run, but already, all it takes is one kid to text them a link. Hey, check this out. And that kid's parents don't have the same rules or values that we do. And that's all it takes. And I've explained that to my kids. You look at one wrong, twisted video and your feed is forever like damaged. It's like planted a seed, and now all of a sudden you're going to start seeing that stuff. So I've warned them about that. And there's still little yet that I still have to do the mentoring. I still have to do a little bit of monitoring and checking in and making sure that things stay on the up and up. And these tools are going to help me do that. So I'm excited about that. So I'll be able to do a combination of mentoring and monitoring, and I'm looking forward to checking that out. I mean, like I said, I was going to look at the router level to see if, maybe I should just disable access to YouTube, but at least now I can start looking at it and I can show them and I can say, you're spending this much time and you really need to be spending time doing other things. So I think it's all a good thing. I think it's all on how you interpret it and how you utilize it. And I'm looking forward to it. Even for adults. I mean, I think this is going to be good just so I can look to see what I do. I say, this is great. And then one of the other things that stood out is after bedtime use. I can see what time of day that and there's times I have my phone at my bedside and I'll pick it up and start looking at an email, or if I wake up or something. But I think it's some great tools. I think Apple was very smart. I think it'll make things easier. Now, I know, for example, when my dad first got his new phone, he was really annoyed that, I told him, Dad, plug it in on your nightstand, plug it in by your bedside. Because I was trying to teach him, I would like to guide him into the direction of not relying on a landline, because he gets so many scam calls and stuff like that. Well, his argument against that was that, and this is totally valid, he could not stand that it was lighting up and, things, notifications were coming across the screen. And what it made me realize is that there are just like notifications and things that are just turned on by default, and you can switch those switches off all you like. But sometimes when you do an app update, they turn back on. And unless you know where to look, I mean, on my other podcast, we were just talking about how much granularity there is. There are so many places to look. There are so many toggle switches that it really makes it difficult. Now, I have kind of like taken it to an extreme. Like I have a lot. I mean, I keep my stuff in do not disturb, and I have my phone completely, and my watch for the most part. Sure. Most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, I have it in like silent mode. I make an active choice when to look at my devices. Now, I check regularly because I have my own business and I kind of have to do that. Right. and I'm always checking on things. And so I do check the phone a lot, but I want to be in control of that. I want to control the phone. I don't want the phone controlling me. And I think what's great about these features that are coming out is because it's so overwhelming. Now I know where to look. I know all the switches. I won't say I know all of them. That's the issue. Is there's times when things slip through. I'm like, that woke me up because I do. I've talked about it before. I struggle with insomnia. I struggle with sleeping. And there are times when I really need to take a nap during the day and I really need stuff to be locked down and completely silented.
Sure.
But I still want to be alerted. Like when the kids are in school, I want to be notified when they call me from school or when there's an emergency. So you have to let some things through. And I think that these tools will make it a little bit easier for people like my dad or, anybody who wants to be able to keep their phone in their room, but not have it constantly disturbing them all the time. Or people who do work, maybe like I know personally, like I have the tendency to be a workaholic. And so, people like that who need a little bit of extra help with behavior modifications. And I think that these are going to be giving us tools that we need to be able to help with that kind of stuff so that it isn't so overwhelming and that people will actually use them instead of just being frustrated by it.
Sure. No, it's a heavy topic, but I'm glad Apple did it, and definitely it's going to be a feature to look forward to. One of the things I wanted to bring up too is I actually got to play a little more with CarPlay. I haven't had to, and I'm some family members went on vacation. And they rented a vehicle. And I got into the vehicle. I was like, oh, cool! Look at this. It's got CarPlay. I want this so bad.
Nice.
I want so bad. So, and the cool thing was, as soon as the iPhone was plugged in using USB as opposed to actually syncing with Bluetooth, it automatically saw it and said, okay, here's CarPlay, and then the phone came up and all the working apps. But one of the biggest pet peeves was the fact that a lot of people not everybody likes Apple Maps. So the huge thing is going to be here is it's going to give support with third-party apps, especially
Google
ones
Maps
like
and Waze.
Waze, which is huge.
Yes.
So something definitely to look forward to. And I'm hoping soon, but probably not for a few years before I decide to buy a new car. Just have to suffer through my 7-year-old technology on my car right now, but it is what it is.
Mine's double that.
Yeah, well,
but that's the great thing, though. I mean, I can still drive a 14-year-old car. I can still milk it to death because of all these tools. I just recently got a Bluetooth gizmo that plugs into the what we used to call the cigarette lighter. It's what is it? The power port now? I mean, what do we call it now if it's not a cigarette lighter? But that thing you plug it into. Right. Anyway, I got one of those, and so I'm getting that much closer to. It's my training wheels for when I get CarPlay. That's the way that I look at it. I'm training for CarPlay, so I'm excited. I'm using those kinds of features and stuff that are available because I do the same thing. There's things, and I've said there's things I like about Apple Maps, but there's more things that I like about Google Maps. And when we're traveling, I don't use Waze a lot. I know people who use it religiously, but we do use it when we travel, and it has really gotten us out of some jams. I mean, it really, really has. So it definitely has its merit. I really do wonder if having those, being able to open it up and add those back in, is Apple going to use that data to improve Apple Maps? I mean, are they going to be able to see, or maybe this is just a theory. This is a crackpot theory, but maybe it'll let them know. It'll give them data on usage, and maybe they'll just give up on Apple Maps or something. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't see that happening.
They have so much invested into it already, right?
Oh, they do.
So maybe they'll use it to improve it. Who knows? Maybe it'll just make things better. But at least now we'll have some choices. So that's always a good thing.
So a few other things I was great that they added was notifications. You have a little more control of what can be notified as far as what you can be notified as. I've turned on Twitter lately. And of course don't have a lot of people notified because they would be going off like every 5 seconds. So specifics of what you're trying to look for, but they've improved some. Improved some of the ways that you can control, and maybe you can control what it can be done. Things like Facebook, where you can have it delivered quietly. I don't have Facebook turned on as far as notifications go. I keep that off and take a look at it. So they made some enhancements there. One of the other cool things they did add was the Do Not Disturb feature. I know you said you use that a lot. This is great. Now you can bring it up, and you can do for 1 hour to Do Not Disturb, or until this evening, or until I leave this location, or until I leave the end of this event. So that one's probably the most intriguing is the fact that it goes to your calendar and sees, well, that event goes from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then once it ends, then it'll turn off instead of what we have now, where you set specific times or you turn it on for the whole time and have to remember to turn it off.
Yeah, it's one of those things I'm going to treat that like keychain. I don't think I'm going to rely on it because I just personally am. I've got my muscle memory trained to the point where I know where that little moon is. I know where that little moon is, and I'm always chasing after that little moon because I do have it scheduled, and that's by default that I do rely on, and that works because that's proven to be relied upon. But I like being able to choose when I flip it up and tap the moon. So I don't think I'll be. Yeah, I don't think I'll personally be relying upon the timing version of it, but I can really see how that would come in handy for people.
Yeah, absolutely. So more things that they added, make it more efficient. And again, as we're seeing the trends here, Apple just subtly has added some of the features so they don't go crazy and overboard with it because it's going to be. That was what the biggest concern was. We don't have a ton of features, but there are some cool things that they are adding that's making it more efficient, and that's what's great about it. When you talked about photos, and they did add some things here with photo sharing. They have a new tab in Photos called the For You tab that shows you great moments from your photos libraries, photo library, and it intelligently suggests sharing photos with the people in them. So.
Now, is that the same as the App Store and the Music app? Isn't there a For You section in that also?
Yeah.
It's kind of a consistency thing.
Consistent thinking, yeah, because they seem to have done that design, much differently. So, yeah, I agree that definitely is something like that.
They're taking a page from those other apps.
And then the other cool thing is, and that was always a challenge with photos, is a smarter way to search for photos. Search suggestions will be a new way to help you find the exact photo you are looking for, or rediscover a great one that you forgot about. Because I got you're the same, tens of thousands of photos out there, and it's hard to remember events if you want to make it smarter and be able to find things. So the other big discussion was Siri shortcuts and streamlining things you do and often with shortcuts. So now Siri can actually intelligently pair the daily routines of your third-party apps, that's a big thing. They really do a very good job of integrating with third-party apps and suggesting that that you have convenient shortcuts right when you need them. Typically, like if you pick up coffee at a coffee place, or everything could be in your lock screen with the shortcuts app. So with shortcuts, and this can go in your lock screen for lock screen suggestions. So it's getting better. And one of the things that kind of spin off a little bit on the Apple Watch with Siri, I've noticed that Siri is very, very accurate on the watch. Even talking into it, I've also noticed that the Hey You is working a little better, even in 11.4 right now, because I've had it sitting on my seat in my car, and I would yell it out, Hey You, and it would work great. It would actually come up. So I think Siri's getting better. I think it still has a little ways to go.
I think it's better on the newer devices. I'd have to disagree on the older devices because, like I said, I have a Series 1, and it could just be the age. It could just be that maybe I have gunk in the microphone that needs to be cleaned out or something. But it's not as reliable for me on my older device. But I have heard nothing but good things about it on the Series 3 and the newer devices. So that's great. I do have a question, and someone else has actually asked me about this too, and I was thinking the same thing. What are the security implications for Siri shortcuts? Now, first of all, we should probably mention that I believe, and my friends on the other podcast also, we think that the workflow app that was purchased by Apple, that this is kind of it is using it, being absorbed, or so what's the future of the workflow app? Or will they just work together, or will it be dissolved? Will it be cannibalized? What will happen to it?
As far as the discussions have gone on the web and other podcasts and other discussions about this, the workflow app is still going to continue to evolve as it is.
Okay, as a standalone app.
Yeah, it's still a standalone app, but I think they've done a better job of integrating automation. I think that they're going to utilize what workflow can do with Siri. So I think that was a smart thing. It's kind of like with the News app. And they redesign the News app too, and added some new new features as far as getting the news. They're really pushing hard to get the news. I mean, ever since they purchased the company Texture with the magazines, I really think Apple's really diving deep in with this news app, because they did bring the news app to Mac OS too. So you got that as well. But as far as privacy goes, Apple did really stress about how they protect your privacy even when the websites won't help protect you. So
there's that. But the kind of privacy and security implications I'm wondering about is things like when your phone spills the beans on you. If you set your phone down, what are other people going to be able to find out about you by just looking at your lock screen if you allow all that stuff to be active? I mean, they really can.
It's true. It's that thing. You have to do an informed consumer, just to understand what the implications are by putting it on the lock screen. If it's something that you feel is going to be sensitive, then don't do it. I mean, that's really the bottom line. I think it'd be smart not to. If you feel, again, I'm one that doesn't bother me with the privacy.
I would be, except for the fact that we have experienced theft, not once, but twice. And it has been my own personal theft. But I mean, my husband's iPhone was stolen. And ever since then, like the other day, one of my kids the little one brought his phone to me and he's like, Mommy, I can't, do Control Center. Cause I told him, I said, go ahead and set a timer. And he had been playing on it too much, and so I had changed his passcode. And I forgot that so long ago I had disabled that because of what had happened to my husband this was a while ago, but when his phone was stolen by a student, I realized that it was too easy to be able to access things from the lock screen and from the Control Center. And so when he got his phone back and when we updated and all that kind of stuff, I had actually disabled Control Center from the lock screen just because it was too easy for someone to steal it and then swipe up and then tap the Wi-Fi signal and take it offline. Sure. And then, go do whatever they wanted to do with it. Now, I mean, of course, it was locked with a passcode. All of our data was safe. Like we never, I definitely trust Apple as far as privacy is concerned and data loss prevention. However, there's still things that they can get at from the lock screen. So I think it really depends. Yeah, you have to be an educated consumer. You also have to consider your environment that you use these devices in. And so, for example, I mean, my husband's using it in a school environment, and he's now a lot more better about, like, he doesn't take it out of his pocket. I mean, or he doesn't set it down. If he does take it out of his pocket, he doesn't set it down. He was using it as a utility device. He was using it in a classroom activity as a timer. And, kids just saw that and they just took advantage of it. And so, and plus it was a different age group and that sort of thing. So again, it goes back to considering the environment that you're working in, and the type of lifestyle that you have. And, if you're the type of person that if there's any remote possibility that you're going to separate yourself from your iPhone, or you're going to be separated from your iPhone, then you may want to consider what it is that you have that shows on the lock screen. So it might not be for you, as they say. This is for you. It might not be for you. Yep. So
I agree.
Yeah. So just give that some thought is all I want to bring people's attention to. It's a great feature, and I'm sure that it makes life a lot easier. But of course, there's always, when you're given the choice between convenience and security, you can strike that balance.
Yep, I agree. So some of the things that they did change now, iBooks is no longer. It's now called Apple Books.
Dropping the I.
They just got rid of the I. I hope that's not something that's be trending here. They start dropping the I from all the other products here. But
I think that they're going to, and I'm kind of disappointed by that. And just for the simple aspect that it makes it really hard to talk about
Apple Books.
Yeah.
I mean, iPhone. I think iPhone and iPad might be tough. I mean,
but I'm talking about software. It's really difficult to talk about in verbiage software when you're using nouns and verbs that are also products. Yep. It's just frustrating.
Yeah. The voice memos app was completely redesigned, and
that looks cool.
It looks really cool. And then they've also brought it to the iPad finally,
and to the Mac.
I mean,
it's there, but
they did redesign the stocks app for those of you who follow stocks, and it looks awfully like the way the App Store has looked in a lot of the other ones. So it looks like I see a consistency here.
So it's news and voice memos and stocks. Was it just those three, or was there another one? I think it was those three that basically they used as an example of what it might look like if they started to port, and not, what he made an announcement basically that no, they're never going to separate the operating systems. We're not going to meld iOS with Mac OS.
The big word, no.
Right. No, this is not happening. Craig Federici said, with the big, was that the one slide I think they had that had the nice big, thunderous clap poof of,
no, we're not doing it. No.
But what they are going to do is they are going to make it a little bit easier for developers to be able to develop. Basically, you can develop one iOS app and then one Mac/iPad app and then watchOS. You can basically develop, or in tvOS. You can develop for those platforms, but it looks to be like if you can develop an app that will work on the iPad, that it will also port nicely to the Mac side of things. That's what is to come. And so it looks like they use those 3 apps as examples to showcase what could be done if you decided that you wanted to make your iPad app also look and work okay on the Mac side of things.
Yeah. Couple other features that they're going to enhance on the iPhone 10. Face ID now will recognize 2 faces.
Yay. So I'm excited for that. I know
helping
people
helping your customers for that. And it's
when I get one, that'll be the first thing I do, because that's the first thing that my husband and I do is we put each other's fingerprints in each other's phones. And now my kids, so I mean, it'll be a while before they get an iPhone 10 unless we win the lottery or something. Yeah. But I've done that with my son's phone. Now that he has a 5S, that was the first thing I did. I put my fingerprint in there.
The other pet peeve a lot of people have with iPhone 10s was the closing of iOS apps. It's going to be much easier. You can just scroll up like it used to be, because right now what you have to do is you have to tap hold, get the red minus to come up, and then you can scroll up to close them. So there was always complaints about that.
Because people wanted to close the apps because so many people have that muscle memory built in that they want to be able to close all their apps all the time.
No, just more so there might be times you want to get the apps out of the memory.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. That's always been a big myth. I mean, Apple's always said that you don't have to close apps. It works just fine. I mean, Android's the same way. I mean, you can have apps that are running in the background all the time. So
yeah, I have apps that run for like weeks at a time. Now, I do like to be able to swipe up, repeatedly for those like 40 screens that I have open, because I'm, getting ready to do, I don't know about you, but like every time I'm ready to do an update to the operating system, I always close all the apps. Or if I'm troubleshooting, I close all the apps, because I do want that RAM, I want that memory like flushed out. It's just a hygiene kind of a thing. But I'm not one of those people that feels compelled, and I do suffer with OCD a lot of times, but I'm not one of those people that feels compelled to. You couldn't tell, I know. It's kind of a given, but, but believe it or not, I don't feel compelled to swipe up all the screens all the time. But yet I've seen people in environments where they do that all the time because someone a long time ago told them to do that and that it was good, and so they do it.
A good segue with talking about iOS updates. That there was a mention. I mean, some of these things that I'm talking about it wasn't actually talked about during the keynote, but automatic iOS updates, and it's not 100% clear how that's going to work. But a trigger in settings suggests that you might be able to configure iPhones and iPads to automatically install iOS updates. I know that could be kind of scary, but a lot of times people,
I like that.
You and I are always, we want control, but there might be times there are people that they would just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, it'll be nice as long as they build in a switch to be able to turn it off. And just like I was very happy and impressed that when it came to iMessage in the iCloud, they did not put the switch on by default. It's off. You have to go into, just like we talked about in a previous episode, it's exactly where we thought it would be. You have to go into settings, you have to tap on your name, and then you have to tap on iCloud and look through the list of services, and you will now see iMessage, or Messages as it's called. It's not listed by the service, but by the actual app name. There you go, because it doesn't have an I in front of it. It's hard to talk about. But if you look for Messages, you can now switch it to the on position, and it will then start backing it up. But it is not on by default. So when it comes to these automatic iOS updates, I'm pretty sure that they will do the right thing and that they will make it optional, that you will opt in to do that, and that it won't do it automatically, because I know people that do it accidentally, not automatically, accidentally, and they get so incensed about it. And rightfully so, because it changes a bunch of things. I mean, when we go from one update to another, usually incremental updates are not a big deal. But when you go for a whole a whole operating system upgrade, things change, and a lot of people do not like change.
I agree.
So,
I agree. Now, a couple more things here before we get close to wrapping this up. There is more battery information in the battery list for usage chart. In the settings now shows your usage for the last 24 hours or 10 days, and you can tap the bar to show that. So that's pretty cool. We did mention earlier that there's contactless student ID cards for students going to schools. So that's going to be available on the iPhone as well. And
for select universities.
For select universities for now, but yep. So they did that as well. So a couple of the things I did mention as far as augmented reality AR. There's a new file format called USDZ. It's a new format that helps the 3D creators to create more rich content and animations optimized for mobile devices. So they've added that face tracking. So face tracking now will be able to see where you're looking at, so it can detect whether you're sticking your tongue out or winking. So they added that in there, as well as that was going to be for the animojis and memojis. So it's just endless. It just keeps going. I mean, there's just a lot of different things that this is that they've enhanced. But
it's good to talk about them so that people understand.
I know we're talking about it now, but we're also talking about this. This is not going to get officially released for at least another 3 more months. So,
so get ready.
You can be
thinking about it.
You could be sure that I'll be talking. We'll both be talking about as we hear about new things as the beta is released. Again, don't install it on your primary devices. I always tell people that. Please don't, because you will regret it, and especially if it's your primary device. So,
yeah, these are things we want you to be thinking about when this comes up. Be thinking about, don't just think that Siri shortcuts is going to be such an awesome thing. Be thinking about what it actually is going to show on your screen before you install it.
So as far as compatibility goes, iOS 12 is going to be compatible with basically every iPhone that was released up all the way down to the 5S, which is pretty exciting. So you go with the 5S up to, of course, the 10. So if you're running iOS 11 now, you're going to be able to update the 12 when it comes out. Now with iPad, same thing. It goes through all the pros, the large screen as well as the smaller screens. Even the iPad Air 2 and the Air, which is awesome because those are 2 older devices that you would wonder if they were going to still update that, but because they still run iOS 11, they're going to do it. And then the three of the iPad minis will be available to update as well.
Some of these devices are 5 years old.
Especially like the
devices that have been around for 5 years that people are still using, or like us, passing down to other family members.
Yeah,
you can still get the latest security updates, the latest patches on devices that are 5 years old.
Yep, and that's what's great. I mean, that Apple is supporting them, and they were able. And why they're able to support these is because they took the time to make sure that this operating system was efficient in the way. Right,
and it's not going to slow your older devices down. I mean, that remains to be seen, but I'm looking forward to that. I will certainly be testing that. My son, who has the 5S, was really excited. He's like, "Oh, I could put iOS 12 on this, and it's not going to slow it down. That'll be great."
Yeah, and I seem to remember that happening in previous versions of iOS. That my 4S is slowed down now since I installed iOS 9.
Even my 6S was like, and iOS 11 when it first came up, like, okay, I tapped the app. Hello, are you there?
Yeah. So, no, I'm so glad we were able to dig into all the things to get our points of view of what happened at WWDC. There was a lot of great announcements, and this was a perfect episode to really get and dig deep into some of the things that are out there. We could keep going. There's more. And
we will as time goes on. We'll talk about things that come up.
We will, and there was a lot of features that weren't talked about, and because the keynote was almost 2.5 hours. It was 2 hours and 15 minutes. So there was a lot to talk about. So what do you say we wrap this up, huh?
I think it's time to put a bow on it.
I hope everybody enjoyed it. So it was a lot of fun to talk about this. So with that, let's wrap it up. So thanks for listening, and we hope you were more in touch with iOS after hearing this episode. Subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcatcher, and show your friends to find us on the Apple Podcasts and the Google Play Store and Stitcher. And we look forward to bringing you more useful information in future episodes. And I just remembered we have to talk about MacStock.
Oh, you can fit it in there.
As we're closing, I will mention really quickly is MacStock 2018. That's happening pretty soon here, July 21st, 22nd. Go to macstock2018.com. We have a offer code that's just for us, and we've been sharing it out. If you go and purchase tickets now, you use the offer code INTOUCH, and it'll take $70 off of your price. I'll be speaking there again for my 4th year, as well as we have all kinds of great speakers that are going to be there. Be sure that you go ahead and take a look at that. We'll have that in the show notes, of course, but macstock2018.com, and make sure you go visit that. So with that, I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me everywhere on the Twitters at DaveG65.
And I'm the Mac Mommy, and you can find me online all over at the Mac Mommy.
We hope you'll subscribe for our future episodes, and we appreciate it, and thanks for listening.